Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of The Cheeky Natives. This is the first time that I'm broadcasting without my partner in all things literary, so special shout out to Litlocho Nono, who's all the way in LA doing big things. It's Alma, aka Dossley, aka everything, and we have a very special guest on today's show. We have Upile Chisala on the show. She just recently performed in South Africa for the second time this year. So a sold out audience for the second time this year. We had people practically coming over us to get to see Upile. So it's awesome to have her on the show. So everybody say hi to Upile.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. Yesterday was amazing, so I'm glad I get to talk.
So this is just as a background. Yesterday, Upile performed at a Word and Sound and Cheeky Natives event at African Flavor Books in Braamfontein, which is great. And it was amazing. Like, the space was so different. So this time around, you were performing books, poems from Nectar, as opposed to sort of soft magic that we saw a lot of in your first performance. So has there been a shift from soft magic to Nectar? What's different about Upile in this book as opposed to soft magic?
Yeah, so the story that I kind of stick with is that soft magic was about like getting to know myself. It was about getting to love myself and different aspects of being a Black woman. And Nectar was once I found my voice and using it. So it was about self-confidence. I think, like, in the book, I explore a lot of the past and how the lessons that I've learned from there and how they've affected my present. And then in the end, I kind of end on a warm note about the future.
What do you think? What do you hope that people will take from like Nectar as opposed to soft magic? So when I read soft magic, there was a lot of tenderness and a lot of becoming, and a lot of dealing with yourself and just like I want to say grappling with like some complex like issues of identity, of like allowing certain things to happen, so of taking agency, whereas Nectar feels a lot like blooming. It feels a lot like coming into your own.
I love that how you framed that. I think that for me, Nectar was about standing firmly in that identity. So now I know who I am from soft magic. I've learned those lessons. But in Nectar, what do I do with them? What are the poisons that I have to get rid of in my own life? What are the wonderful things that I don't appreciate enough? So there's a lot of growth in Nectar for me. And a lot of no BSing. I was like, you know what, you've been through quite a lot.
I
dragged myself. I was like, drag Upile and everybody else. Like, we need a little dragging. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to Nectar. Like, I see myself as like a whole different person.
How do you like self drag? I find the self drag to be difficult, right? Because I'm still working on how to drag myself but show myself tenderness as well, right? And show myself the same sort of room for growth that I show to other people. And how do you balance, because sometimes you need to be brutally honest with yourself. How do you balance that brutal honesty with tenderness and with making room? Tracy Ellis Ross says this, and I love this: every day I'm learning how not to let the space between who I am and who I want to be terrify me. And like Nectar feels like that, right? It feels like the filling of that space.
Yeah. I think that the self-drag is truly important. I was just talking to you earlier about like how I struggled with like being teased, having my imperfections out in the open. So when I was writing Nectar, I was like, you know what, there's some toxic behaviors that I may have inherited or that I think are normal, things that I don't call out. And so it's about accountability, to be quite honest. As you unfold, as you unravel like the complexity of your identity, the way that I did in soft magic, I think in Nectar I moved forward and decided, so what do I do now that I know that about myself? Will I bring it forward to my different relationships, my friendships, to the workspaces? How will I let this past trauma affect my future? And so I don't know. There's definitely a conflict between like showing yourself tenderness and being, like you said, honest. Honesty is so important in my life. Like I think that you can lie to everyone but yourself. And yeah, I wear this ring now, and I've told myself I need to be kinder to myself. That's kind of like a promise ring to myself. And like every day, I only take it off to bath. I'll put it on, and I'm like, today, what are you going to do to better who you are?
Jeez, I love that. I'm getting an idea, right? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so it was a complete promise to me.
Do you feel like you're fulfilling that promise? Does it get better? Does it get easier every day? Because I think everybody's been on this like self-care and I'm out here just looking after me. But what does that look like in practice? You know, like how are you practicing being kinder to yourself? I think we have a lot of like destructive self-dialogue. I was thinking about that the other day. Somebody said if you spoke to your friends the way you speak to yourself, would you still have friends? And then I was like, snatch me, right? Especially in the pursuit of like I love black girl magic, but I think sometimes in the pursuit of black girl magic, it's been a little bit unkind, you know.
It can be rough, and I don't know. There's a lot of work to it. Like I really am trying to be softer with myself because. I always say that it starts like it's a very inward process. Like how people are going to treat me outside. I mean, it's not always dependent on how I treat myself. Like I can treat myself like a queen and so forth. I think like highly of myself, and someone will still think I'm trash. But then there's certain relationships where you can see that you don't treat yourself very well, and you're never kind to yourself. And so when you go into this situation, this person already knows that this is how you think
of yourself,
how you view yourself. And it kind of manifests itself into that relationship. So I don't know. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of saying yes to all the good things that I have to offer. Like being accepting of like if somebody, I struggle with taking compliments. Like it's really hard for me when someone says, "Oh, you're beautiful," "Oh, I love your book," "Oh, this and that." I'm very like critical of myself. I'm sometimes like overly critical of myself. I spend so much time overthinking like the little details in my life and say, "Really, you could have done this better. Or you could have done that better," and I don't give myself enough credit. And so I've just decided to step back a little bit and be a little bit more thoughtful because if I'm not kind to myself, I don't know if that's necessarily living right. I want to live right. I want to live better. I want to define what being a better person means. And so, there's a lot of work.
Do you think that, I mean, you've just in the past 2 years have blown up so much, right? And it's been great to obviously see your work get different platforms everywhere you go, right? Has seeing how people react to your writing and to your work change the way that you look at yourself? Are you starting to feel like, maybe I'm kind of a big deal? Is it going anywhere towards healing that kind of doubt that you might have had about your abilities? Or does it magnify it when people are like, "Oh my God, Upile, I read your work and it resonated with me so much"? I mean, I say this because yesterday we had a woman who was in her 50s at the show, at the Q&A session, stand up and say to Upile she really wishes that all women could have an encounter with your work, just because even in her 50s she could personally relate to the work that she'd written. And that was crazy. Like we know how the kind of relationships that older black women have with their traumas, with their lives, with their lived experiences, and to have someone say, "In your writing I found glimpses of myself and I felt like I could relate at 14, at 21, at 50 it was crazy for me, right?
That she cried and I cried. I was like, I can't believe that this person standing here, because she's 54 and her daughter is 17. I was like, wow, this is my mom and me. Like my mom and me are sitting in this crowd and they're praising my work. And it just, I don't know. I'm still in doubt and I'm trying to unlearn that. I still can't believe when people send me some of these messages. It warms my heart. Like I get so flattered. I get so chuffed because I was writing for myself for a very long time. These were truths that I wanted to write for myself, for my own healing. And the fact that it changes someone else's life it still shocks me. So I don't feel like a big deal. I'm still.
What would it take? I was thinking about this yesterday. Like, you get a lot of compliments for your writing and people, and for your books and whatever. What is the greatest compliment do you think that like someone could pay you as a writer? Like, just in case someone's listening to the podcast and is like, the next time I see Upile, I need to say this with my chest.
No, I think the readers of my dreams are people who would just come up to me and tell me their truths. Like the mother yesterday, like you just have to be honest with me and tell me exactly how it impacted your life. And I think that will help me soften me a little bit towards myself and realizing that I actually have been making a difference in a way. So the perfect response or compliment would just be, you tell me, point to a poem and tell me exactly how it helped you or how it hurt you, like how it made you feel, like if you're as honest as possible. Because I think we get the whole like, oh yeah, your work changed my life, blah blah blah. But I wonder, like, I love the specific like stories. I call myself a storyteller because I'm a nosy person who just loves this like little details about people's lives that they want to share with me. I remember I was in Cape Town and someone showed me her back and she has a tattoo of my words.
Oh wow.
And I was like, wow. But then she had a little like very personal story. She told me why she got the words tattooed on her back and how I had helped her life. And I was like, I wasn't expecting that many people to show up, So yeah.
Is there a line that like you go back to in Nectar and it still hits you every single time when you're like, I can't believe I wrote that? It's like, for me, there's a quote that you have, and I think everybody loves this quote because which is maybe a reflection of the trashiness of the men that we've encountered, where you say, darling, I hope you never have to beg on your good bones for bad luck to stay. And I'm like, can this be a resounding anthem for young women everywhere, right? And even yesterday, everyone was like, yes, we were all quoting this poem, and I often think to go back and revisit some of the things that you've written and be like, can't believe I wrote that, right? And is there a poem for you that's like, I know I always ask like writers this, and it's always like asking who's your favorite child, but is there a line in Nectar that you're like, if this is my magnum opus and this is the last thing I write, I'm so proud that I wrote this line?
So I do love that poem you just mentioned, and actually I was in Baltimore when I wrote that. Sorry, like side note, I was in Baltimore when I wrote that, and I was coming back from like one of the trashiest experiences I've had with men, and I was like, wow. And I'm hoping this person stays around. And I was like, nah, my bones are too good. I'm too good of a person to let this person be a part of my life. So, back to Nectar. And so, my favorite poem that I've ever written is not about dripping melanin and honey. It's actually, there is danger in letting people misname you. If you are a fire, do not answer when they call you a spark. And yeah, I think it just speaks to how I feel about people making me feel small. And there's such power in who I feel like I'm becoming. And I need to acknowledge it more. And I need to let go of those people who make me doubt myself. Yeah.
And are you finding that like, for me, Nectar was a lot about becoming, was like the act of becoming, and it made me think a lot about like relationships, but not romantic relationships. I think everybody was like, oh, love, yes, but a lot also about the relationships we have with friends and with other people in our lives, and particularly families as well. And you write a line about how even though we haven't seen romantic love growing up, we're sort of rewriting the script for ourselves, And do you feel like you're at the point where you've rewritten the script for yourself, or do you think that every day is a process of rewriting? And what does it mean to rewrite? What does it mean? I think that there's a lot of young people who've never had the experience of seeing their parents look like the Brady family, but find themselves in love. And Nara White asked, what does love look like? And I'm still grappling with the answers to that question.
So, I've been doing a lot of unpacking and a lot of unlearning lately. Especially in my romantic relationship. I think, sometimes you're always looking
you're staying woke.
Yeah, you're staying woke. You're terrified that, hey, a fire is coming. I'm used to shit burning down. I'm used to things going awry. So I don't know. I'm just learning. There's a lot of work to be done. I constantly say that. I think I guess I am in the process of rewriting.
Do you ever get overwhelmed? Like just the earlier conversation we were having, about like public healthcare and sometimes I just feel like overwhelmed by the states of things that have to be done and by the urgency of things that have to be done. Do you ever get times when you're writing where you feel like you're overwhelmed by all these things that you have to unlearn and undo? Because I think a lot of people are sort of stopped or hindered by the fact that it feels like there's this mountain of things that they have to do that they just may not be capable of doing and unlearning, right? Because just the idea of having to unlearn ideas of patriarchy and respectability politics and what it means to be a good African woman, So do you ever get points where you're just like you're overwhelmed by the work that has to be done?
Definitely. I think it comes with the territory. Like yesterday I was talking to someone, a lovely lady who told me that she was terrified of writing these truths. She was terrified of revisiting some of these traumas within our family and like you say patriarchy and so forth. And then I think Yasha Daily Word says something about like if you're scared, like you should write. And I've started to live by that. So both with Nectar and Soft Magic, I was kind of afraid. I was holding back. I was like, I don't want to be overly honest, but I think it speaks to that thing I was talking about earlier about accountability. Like the things that I've done, things that my family has done, things that my friends have done that are just ugly things, and in order for me to ever heal from those experiences, I need to like write them down. So I'm not saying I'm gonna go sit down and like tell you guys every single detail about Upile's life, but if Upile is trying to, like, it's weird speaking myself like that. Upile is on
You're on your Kanye. You're on your Kanye.
Upile is. I know. So.
Unlearning is a lot. I feel like it's a hashtag. It's a lot. It's a lot, right?
It's a lot of work. What does it look like when all you've ever known is a man speaking to you in this way, or a woman doing this in the family? Like all you've ever known are these make-believe roles that society has kind of created. It's building something completely new, and I think that's what I'm trying to do within my friendships, relationships, and so forth. I'm constantly, my mom would say something and I'll be like, why do you think that way? Why is it that way? Like questioning your parents, like when you reach that age, you're like, maybe I'm kind of grown now.
Questioning your African parents.
Questioning your African parents, like,
should be considered a dangerous sport.
Yeah. So like talking about like sexuality with my mom it's just been one of the most like interesting times in my life, where like it's weird territory, like it's weird, like
because they're actual people. So that becomes strange to you that your parents are actual people, right? With their own traumas, with their own hurts, with their own baggage, with their own lived identities, right? And like that's why when you talk about that intergenerational trauma in one of the poems in Nectar, it's so interesting to me as a concept, right? It's like that we expect women, particularly African women, to shoulder the burden of raising families, of being wives, of being black girl magic in whatever form, without ever really addressing the traumas that exist, And even with the hashtag Me Too, there's a whole like discussion to be had about hashtag Me Too and what that translates to for black women, and even our traumas, and I think it's really interesting that you talk about growing in your relationships with your parents as well, right? Because it looks different for everyone, it looks different for everyone, and I think there's a lot of stigma attached for black people, especially with discussing our relationships with our parents, right? Because you don't want to make your parents look bad, like your parents tried, right? And there's that whole thing, like, are you not grateful, and
I'm grateful, but
and it's that but
like I could have done without some of the experiences that
it's that but, right? It's that but, and I mean, also writing is deeply personal, and you're also allowing people into very personal spaces in your life. Do you ever get nervous about the fact that people might feel that there's like an ownership that they have to your life because of the vulnerability that you show?
Yeah, I actually have that fear. I think someone contacted me and she wrote down, she was like, I like soft magic, but the poems are short. This is how you can improve them. I want you to go deeper and tell me about this, and this, and that. I was like, well, this is the funniest review I've ever gotten in my life.
Wow.
But I was like, I write concise poems because I'm interested, one, in readability. Like, if I see a poem that's like 5 pages long, chances are I'm going to struggle reading it. So myself, I'm not necessarily a lazy reader, but I like the flow of things. I want something to be beautiful and powerful and like just flow right. It doesn't have to be extremely long. And 2, because I want to leave a space for readers to insert themselves in there. Like, they can finish the poem. They can, if they can relate to it, they can finish it. And so I don't think I have to go into details about my own life and be so explicit and say, this exactly happened on this day at this place and so forth. Which I applaud writers who can, but that's not how I want to deal with my trauma. I want it to be. So soft magic was really about sharing for me. Like, I never put numbers in it. I wanted people to like truly read it. Like, when you're reading it, I wanted it to be one of those like dirty books. It's dirty because you've read it so many times. It's like ripped, it's falling apart, because it was like a diary that I was sharing with people. And Nectar is a little bit different from that, but I that's how I approach writing for me. I want to leave space for readers.
So somebody asked you yesterday, and I thought this was such an interesting question, if all your poems are personal, like, are they all, because there were some scenes, and when you read Nectar, so, hashtag not suitable for work, there's some scenes that you're like, yo, okay, you're out here. Particularly when it comes to relationships, because obviously you've become I want to say a lot more public, but that sounds very much like Beyonce revealing Jay-Z. But a lot more open about your relationship with your significant other, I've always found that line very interesting, your significant other. Are your friends not significant? Why is the other?
Better half. I was like, I don't like that one.
Your better half. Better as opposed to, do you take that into cognizance as well? Like, it's one thing to be Upile, the poet, but it's a completely different thing to be Upile, the lover, and Upile is somebody's lover as well. Does that affect now, because your poems are very personal, so does that then affect how you put the poems out? Because we're all going to look at him and be like, yes.
Oh gosh. So I don't have too many like lovey-dovey poems. And I think if I did write a new book, it would just all be about, like, if I wrote a book of love poems, they'll all be about him. But I think in my previous books, it's a mesh of experiences. There's never, especially if I'm like dragging a man, it's not just dragging one man. I'm dragging many who've impacted my life in some way and hurt me in
drag
some way.
them.
So I had a guy once come to me and tell me, hey, I read this poem on this page and it was about me, and I was like, no, it's not. It's not about you.
I bet you think this poem
probably did that to someone else. I bet you. Yeah, so I think because I'm in this relationship now, I have to be cognizant of that. I don't want to share too much. He already gets shy when I talk about him. I don't want to have all my relationship out there. I don't want people to just go and say, oh yeah, I can refer to this page, or I saw them together at this place, so this is definitely about him. Like, he hurt her this in this way, like I read in a poem. Like, I try and keep that out of it, because sometimes I'm not, like I said, I'm revisiting. Most of my poems are revisiting. It's very unrelated to him.
What's that line about never dating a poet, because they'll memorialize you in a poem forever?
Date a poet, we're sweet.
Lol.
We're soft.
Bay's around, so I feel like we can ask him and we can just get his opinion on this whole thing. No. I find that very interesting. Like, how do you balance like relationships and your politics, right? And it's such an interesting thought for me. Like, as a woke Black woman who's feminist and all of that, how do you? Because dating men is an extreme sport. How do you balance it? Really is. How do you balance that with romantic love? Because it's nice. Like, bay life is nice, guys. Don't let them lie to you on Twitter.
It is really nice.
And do you find that there's because I want to say that it's the art of balancing your politics with your lived experiences, right?
Yeah.
And aligning them, because sometimes your politics are romantic or beautiful in theory, but the practice of aligning them, #white feminism, is not the same.
I think that both my partner and I are in the process of unlearning. I don't think patriarchy leaves anyone untouched, you know. So there's definitely things in him as well as in myself that I constantly have to call out. And so in my poetry, and I'm writing about, this, you know, drop this man in this way, like leave this person because of this, like do this. At the same time, I'm constantly building and working in the relationships with the different men I have, like fathers, brothers, so forth, cousins. Always unraveling and constantly having to be the teacher and saying, did you think that woman deserved that because she's a woman? Or, you know, like constantly calling out people. So I think it's a struggle. Being semi-woke. You know, or feeling woke in some senses. But at the same time, you're still having to navigate in your different relationships with men.
Who are unlearning.
Yes, African men who are also on the journey of unlearning. And I'm just all around, I try and show some softness and understanding, but at the same time, I'm quick to tell them, hey, that doesn't,
don't get comfortable.
Don't do that, you know.
You're on your Cardi. You're on your Cardi. Don't get comfortable. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, don't even bring her up. I'll rap the whole song. Like
I love Cardi, right?
I love
it's like her. Cardi as a my friend and I was talking about this, like Cardi has some questionable politics. She says some things that are
she does.
But it's also then like that call out culture that we have where you drag people and then leave no room for redemption. But Cardi as a person is a feminist icon, right? It's like here's this woman exercising agency over her body, as you know, because she was like a stripper, she was all these things, and then she completely just went out to reinvent herself. You know what I mean? But still keeping it real. So she isn't a Michelle Obama and all these like standards that black women get held to. Like you must be, do you know what I mean? Like a lady in the streets and but like. Just to have such an unapologetic ownership of who you are is really important to me, because it means that like black women always get taught that we are too loud, we're too outgoing, we're too all of those things. Black women are always too much but never enough, you know? We're always too much but it's just never enough as well. And Cardi B is great, right? Because Cardi B is everything that your African parents were just like, God,
don't
you know?
Be that person.
And she's unapologetic about it, and there's so much freedom for me, and I think that's such a telling story for black women, right? Like we're so shackled by all these ideas of what we should be.
Yeah, and see, as loud as she is, she got love. See, that's what I was writing the other day. I was like, I tried to eat my loud, and I try to quiet myself for love, and I'm constantly like, no, look at this, look at people like Cardi B who are out here who like completely take ownership of their past, and who are constantly being dragged. Someone would bring up an old video of her doing something in her stripper days and so forth. Therefore,
and she's like, yes,
progress. Like yes, that was me. You know, that's who I was. I don't know why they don't think women can be dynamic, can't be like, you know, so. Like different, like I don't know.
It's also such a like a caricature. It's like black women are you're either a Michelle or you're a Cardi. Like there's no room for you to be anything else. Do you know what I mean?
Different,
or to move from certain experiences. And we had a brilliant poet on the show recently, Ashley Magwe, and she was talking about how black people and black women have been denied the ability to have to be a full human being, like to be on the full spectrum of humanity, right? So you're either like a martyr or you are, you know, you can never ever just be all of those things. You can't twerk and have an Ivy League degree. Do you know what I mean? It's one or the other. And we're always having to bend and to break for like someone's love, and it's always interesting to me that no one expects that of anybody else except black women, particularly. Yes. Like no one else is. Everybody else is assertive. They're passionate. We're angry. You know, we're loud.
I write something about like, can't I just be a black woman that loves?
I actually wanted to ask you about that poem, and I think that's such a powerful. You have a poem where you talk about how can I not just be a black woman who loves herself in peace? Why does everybody? Why are we the only people who have to apologize for thinking of ourselves as beautiful, right? People didn't mind girls being magical until black girls were magic. You know.
So I have a little experience in South Africa that I actually want to like call out every barber who does this. So
drag them.
I want to drag them because for me, I know I constantly get asked questions about hair and so forth because I have some poems about it, about loving yourself, about resistance, just growing your hair the way it comes out of your head. So I went to the barbershop to get a haircut, and the man, without my permission, after I said no 3 times, he said my hair was too coarse for him, too tough for him to work with. He did not like my curl pattern, so he put in texturizer without my permission.
I'm shook.
And I was like, I've never had such an experience in my life, but this man openly hated my hair, truly hated how it was, even though I came in there for a service and I wanted my hair cut the way I wanted it cut. But he said no, it wasn't up to par. It wasn't up to his standards. It wouldn't come out looking neat. And it was a reflection of his work. So he wanted to make sure that he policed how I walked out of that place. And so for me, that was, like, it's already in your head. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to just say no at this point? What am I, I was, again, like, so silenced. I felt like all this black girl magic stuff I've been saying, what does it mean at this point if I'm quiet in this, where this man attacks me? Like, it was an attack on my hair.
And an attack on your identity.
Yes. And I walked out, like, crying. I didn't know it looks good. But, like, that's not the point. The point is, I've come to terms with my natural hair. I've loved it. I love who I am in it. I love what I'm saying about myself as I walk out with it. So that was, it was like a painful experience.
And it speaks to that, right? It speaks to the idea that Black women don't ever have ownership of our bodies because somebody's always trying to sexualize it. Do you know what I mean? Like, demean our features, and then they're okay when the Kardashians are paying money for them.
Yes, always and forever. Like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit frustrating because it also means, like, my friend had something about how we're always like, black girl, black chick, black girl this, black girl that. But when it comes down to the practice of it, sometimes you're just like, wow, I can't believe I let that slide. But it also means, it's also what it means to be in a world that is constantly at war with you, right? Yes. And there are just some battles that are difficult to fight, guys. It's like, how do you fight the person that's doing your hair? They are doing your hair.
I know, that was
like just one ugly word and you're gonna walk out of there with the patch. Do you know what I mean? And then what?
Yeah, I was like compromising. Like, I don't know what to do here. Like, I needed to finish doing my hair, but at the same time, I was so angry, and I walked out carrying this anger at myself as well as him, and at society for thinking that this
is normal.
It's normal, and this is not beautiful. Like, my hair is not beautiful the way it is. So yeah.
Are you changing how you think of beauty the older you get? Like, do you feel like you feel, I want to say feel more attractive, but that's maybe not the right way to phrase it. But this is an anecdote. So when I was younger, I remember a relative of mine saying, she was saying in passing that she'd always wanted to get a nose job because when she was younger, she had a nose like mine and she hated it. And then I was like, there's nothing wrong with my nose. I didn't think there was anything wrong with my nose. But she made me so self-conscious about my nose that much later on, I was like, okay, I'm going to get this nose ring. And this will be an act of reclamation because I'm drawing attention to this feature, to my Negro nose. To this feature that this relative of mine felt so strongly about that she'd always wanted to get a nose job. Those kind of crazy things. And now looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I was ever pressed by that comment. There's absolutely nothing wrong with my nose, Do you have like features that you're like, okay, I'm coming to terms with this, and I'm besides your hair, because hair has become a thing, you know?
It has.
Which is great. Let's have conversations about how Becky can't touch your hair. Like, don't do it.
Well, and a few Beckys have attempted, but I think I completely view beauty differently. And it's, I think we've said the word unlearning a couple of times, but it's the truth. Like, it's a process. Like, I used to hate the shade of my skin because I was taught to hate it. Because so many people were like, oh yeah, when Upile, which one? The dark one. That was always me. And then I hated like my round face, my features, being bit chubbier growing up, like all those things. I just hated them. Now I've like grown into my figure, and I truly am like embracing being this like curvaceous woman. But these are things that I was told were ugly. especially my skin. That truly hurt. I think throughout my life, I look at myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so dark. Why can't I be like so and so? Why can't I be this way? Obviously, lighter skin is beautiful. That's all I see. The same things that a lot of like black girls go through. And how it's unfolded for me is that all of a sudden I'm completely in love with it. Like, it's weird because we go from like being hated, like dark skin being hated, to it being fetishized.
Yeah,
nowadays
there's no like in between. Like, you can't just let me be. Do you know what I mean? You're either completely hating me or you're referring to me as a foodstuff, and it's why are black women the only ones whose skins get talk about like food, like your caramel and chocolate. And yo, maybe I'm just brown. You know,
I think it was like when it's texting and they call you that, like, just block, like chocolate, whatever. I'm like, no,
fetish 101, girl.
I'm not doing that.
They're gonna subject you to their slave fantasies, like 101. Let it go, right? It's crazy to me, and it's crazy that my friend and I were talking about this, how Oprah had her own ponytail for the first time. I don't know if you remember that episode where she showed her own hair for the first time ever. And we were talking about how older black women just don't care. But the sad thing was that it takes an entire lifetime for black women to get to the point where they're absolutely comfortable with themselves, right? And I loved that Nectar was a lot of like having those kind of conversations, sort of grappling with your own demons and your own insecurities. Because it's saddened me. I can't wait until I'm 50 to be comfortable with who I am, you know?
Yeah, it's too long a wait.
Like, where?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, or my boyfriend's brother and I was talking about how he hadn't been or encountered a woman who was completely satisfied with her body. And I've been thinking about that since he said it, you know, that the slim woman that he'd been with felt that they needed to gain a little bit of weight. The curvaceous one that he'd been with wanted to lose weight. Like, there hadn't been a woman that this man is 30 that he encountered who was happy with her body. 30, yo.
I get that. I mean, it's sad, but at the same time, I guess we should draw a line between like just being a self-hating person and being conscious of like what good health looks like. So for example, like, I wouldn't mind shedding a few pounds, but at the same time I love how I look, you know? And so like just a quick like slight response to that. I don't want to I mean, you can look at your body in one way and say, yes, I would like to be improving in so and so way, but you don't have to talk down to yourself and completely like, I don't know, insult all that you are, you know,
right? As a basis of like self-improvements. Yo, jeez. And that's the departure point, right?
Yeah, there's kind of like a difference. You can't say, oh yes, it's all about health, but no, my friend, you've been calling yourself this and that, you say this and that about yourself, like you won't shop, you won't wear certain things, you know, you hate when someone makes a slight comment. Like, there's a lot of like, I don't know, there's a lot a lot going on there.
There is a lot. There's an absolute lot going on, right?
Yes, but
But I guess it's what it's like to grow up and not be the standard of beauty, right? So you're always holding yourself to a standard of beauty that is like, geez, that's not ever going to be attainable for you, because I'm never gonna have long straight hair, or be like a size 0, you know. Lord, if that is what you want from me, I receive it all. But do you know what I mean? Those kind of things, and it's the realization that those are the things that are the standard of beauty, and you may just never attain them. That's okay too, you know. Because I think we're redefining our own standards of beauty. What is the one book that you wish you had written, that you read and you're like, I can't believe I didn't write this book?
The tough questions. Boom.
Okay.
Yes and no, because there's a lot of trauma there. There's a lot of things that painful things that Yasha has gone through. But at the same time, I just think she's so magical with how she uses words.
Doesn't Yasha remind you of Grace Jones though? Like just as an aesthetic,
how she looks,
just as an aesthetic, and also just like I get the vibe from Yasha that she's, you know, when you are at that point where you have a complete acceptance of who you are, because that's what Bone felt like for me. Like I read that and I was like, this is a complete acceptance of who you are, and for me, Grace Jones is that, right? It's like, guys, Grace Jones just, when she describes going to a party that was hosted by someone who disliked her and going there naked.
Oh my gosh.
Only Grace.
I saw Grace Jones at Afropunk London. I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is, I think she's 60. And she's up there just like rocking it out, just being amazing. And you're like, women are always told like, you know, at 60 you should be like the quiet grandma, like wise and like, you know.
Not Grace.
Not Grace. Like she was like, F all those rules. I'm gonna go on that stage and be, I don't know, take risks, be this person. Like the same thing you're talking about, like being a whole person. It's not like we're given these different stages. Okay, in your 20s you have to be a respectful young woman,
so you can find a good husband.
And then in your 30s and 40s you're going to be a good mother and so forth. And then in your 60s you have to have all this wisdom to pass on to younger generations. I just love people who are like so unconventional, unorthodox, and like F it, I'm going to be who I want to be. And I think that's what I was talking about yesterday, about like owning like my life. And I'm kind of trying to be on that journey, like owning exactly who I am. So if I do shit, like I'm doing shit because I want to do shit. Like, you know, I don't always want people to be like, it has to be this way, it has to be that way. And that's kind of being, I think the issue with like being visible now. You know,
is this thing that you have to now be like a role model.
Yeah. I know. That's why I struggle to write about sex. I'm like, hey, someone's child. But, you know, at the same time, I want to be like, you know, take those risks and write about those weird things.
Yeah, what is you should say, those difficult stories, right? Because that difficult thing is a thing.
Yes.
But also then you know your mom's going
like, mom, she's not gonna like this, but she wouldn't want to know what I did this way.
And it's sad, right? Like, because I'm like, you know, you think twice about just even, not even talk about your boyfriend, and your mom's like, what boyfriend? What's that?
That's all about intersectionality, though, like, guys. Like, okay, yes, I'm this black woman, right? But hey, I'm African, you know?
I love that. I love that. I was saying, like, I love how Ijeoma was talking about what African feminism looks like, in the sense that she talks about how your feminism wears a head wrap and took her husband's name. I'm like, yeah, right? Because why does feminism have to be one thing as opposed to it being a choice for women to be exactly what they want to be? And if that means maybe you're not gonna be out there talking about, you know, not suitable for work things, good things, love things, grown up things, grown folk things. That's not a reflection on your own sense of self, right? Yeah. So just in closing, we've had an amazing time, but we want to know what's next. So just in wrapping, what's next for Upile? Where can people watch you? Where can they get some of your work? What can they look forward to?
Okay, you can get my work on Amazon. But if you're in South Africa, I guess, exclusive books, the Book Lounge, and hopefully African flavor books soon.
Yay.
So that's where you can get my books. I have a website, upile.com. I'm going to work on growing that a little bit more. And I want to run a newsletter every week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sorry, every month. Let's not get too excited. Like every month.
We'll take every month.
Because I think when I get because what's really next is like more writing. So for me to get in the mood for writing, I love to listen to a lot of music. So in the newsletters, I wanted to include like songs that I truly enjoy, some tips and so forth. Not that I'm like teacher goals, but I'm trying. I feel like if you have a gift, you must share it. And if you have a talent, like definitely go ahead and help other people grow their talent as well. And so I hope to write more poetry books. I hope to love more. I hope to have less hurt in my life.
I love that.
And
from your lips to God's ears, I think we're sending out all those good vibrations. Those are some really, really great vibrations. Thank you so much for coming onto the show, and just like a massive thank you, not just for, you know, coming and always showing up in your prime. I keep saying this and everyone thinks it's like shady, but it's true, right? I think it's important for people to come, you know, visible people to come and showcase their work in Africa at the prime of their careers, and not wait to be struggling R&B singers at the end of their careers to come and grace us with their presence, right? Especially when the stories are so relevant to African women. Like yesterday, there was a room full of black women reciting Upile's work, snapping their fingers and just giving us life. And that's just, you know, that is just a testament to the kind of work that you do. And also just as an affront to all the the imposter syndrome. I think that imposter syndrome threatens to rob Black women of so much of their magic. And hopefully every time that the thief that is imposter syndrome comes, you will think of all the Black women around the world that read your work and are revitalized and that can relate over and over again. So from the Cheeky Natives to Upile and to everybody listening, just a massive, massive thank you. Like Upile said, please buy her work. It is available in South Africa on Amazon. Loot, take a lot.
Oh yeah.
Exclusive
books. Like, you know more than I do.
Girl, I'm about this. African flavor book lounge, like you have no excuse. Please don't be asking for PDFs. Like just stop this thing in
no
20.
PDFs.
Stop this. Can we leave that? Can we leave not crediting? I have a list of things that people need to leave, but not crediting writers for their work. Please leave that in 2017. If you see words by Upile printed on t-shirts, call us. We will drag those people to the gods, right? Like, can Black women reclaim their work and their dues in 2017 and onwards? So yeah, that's me waxing lyrical. But thank you for joining the Cheeky Natives and Upile. Stay tuned for more to come. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.